Hey everyone, welcome. So glad you're joining me for this explainer. Today, we are unpacking something absolutely massive. I'm talking about Volume 18 of the Mahaparinirvana Sutra. Now, if you've spent any time studying Eastern philosophy or Buddhist doctrine, you know that certain texts completely disrupt the status quo, right? Well, this is definitely one of them. We're about to explore a huge philosophical paradigm shift, a text that takes the foundational concepts you thought you knew and turns them entirely inside out to reveal a completely different ultimate reality. So grab your focus because this is going to be a wildly fascinating intellectual journey. Okay, let's map out exactly what we're covering today. First, Buddhism's ultimate paradox. Second, the Tathagata as eternal existence. Third, our core focus, defining permanence, bliss, self, and purity. Number 4 is Dharma protection, the secret treasury. And finally, we'll wrap up with the conclusion, the world is not empty. All right, let's just jump right in. Section 1, Buddhism's ultimate paradox. To really grasp the academic and philosophical weight of Volume 18, we have to look at it through the lens of a massive contradiction. Take a look at this stark contrast. On one side, we've got the baseline of traditional Buddhist thought, impermanence and no self, the idea that everything is just fleeting and there's no permanent underlying essence. But then, boom, the Nirvana Sutra drops this radical textual claim on the other side. The ultimate reality is actually defined by permanence, bliss, self, and purity. Talk about cognitive dissonance. It completely flips the script for scholars and practitioners. It forces us to ask, how does a tradition built on impermanence suddenly pivot to declaring a permanent, blissful, ultimate self? That's the exact paradox we're resolving today. Which takes us right into Section 2, Tathagata, the eternal existence. To even begin untangling this paradox, the sutra has to completely redefine the ultimate enlightened figure. Now, according to the source text, the Tathagata isn't just some historical figure who hit enlightenment and vanished into nothingness. No, the sutra defines the Tathagata as an ultimate state of existence, one that is completely unchanging, unmoving, and totally immune to the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. It's wild, right? It's radically reframing the Buddha not as a passing historical phenomenon, but as this absolute, eternal presence woven straight into the fabric of reality. And what's really fascinating here is how completely direct the text is about this. It literally says, as spoken by past Buddhas, unchanging, eternally without change. It anchors this eternal nature not as some new rogue invention, but as the continuous, unbroken truth of all past enlightened beings. Academically speaking, the text is arguing that the true nature of the Tathagata has literally never been altered. It's a permanent fixture. To build up this narrative of infinite duration and wisdom, the text takes these traditional titles or epithets and assigns them deeply permanent meanings. Take worthy, for example. Here it means permanently destroying the 4 demons of affliction. Or rightly omniscient. That implies an unwavering perfect knowledge of all reality. Titles like perfect in knowledge and conduct and well gone aren't used to describe someone who just left the building. They describe someone who has arrived at the ultimate, unchanging truth. These aren't just polite titles anymore. They are rigorous academic definitions of eternal characteristics. So moving right along to Section 3, defining permanence, bliss, self, and purity. Let's really get into the weeds of those 4 ultimate virtues we touched on earlier. Let's move to how this builds out practically. The genius of the sutra is how it pairs these super abstract virtues directly with a bodhisattva's actions in the real world. Permanence is realized through this unwavering, unchanging commitment to practice and ultimate realization. Bliss is honestly fascinating. It's defined as willingly enduring immense suffering for the sake of others. That totally selfless act is what yields true eternal joy. Self is possessing an ultimate unpolluted true nature, free from delusion. And finally, purity. This is the ability to exist right in the middle of a corrupted world but stay completely untainted by it. Think of it exactly like a lotus flower blooming right out of the mud. To really drive home why an eternal, blissful being would ever bother interacting with a flawed world, the text uses this incredibly visceral metaphor. Picture a wealthy man who has just safely escaped a blazing, collapsing house. But wait, he realizes his kids are still trapped inside. What does he do? He willingly turns right around and runs back into the inferno to save them. That represents the bodhisattva. Even though they've realized this permanent, blissful, ultimate reality, their profound compassion literally compels them to re-enter the suffering world. They aren't trapped by the fire, they master it to rescue others. The text takes it a step further, outlining this conceptual journey of how different beings perceive entering the physical world, specifically entering the womb. A lower grade practitioner sees it as a dark, impure place of suffering. A middle grade practitioner is kind of neutral, seeing it like a forest or a house. But the upper grade bodhisattva, because they are so deeply anchored in those virtues of permanence, bliss, self, and purity, they perceive entering the world as walking into gorgeous palaces and gardens. The core takeaway here is that despite these varying perceptions of physical reality, the highest bodhisattva harbors absolutely zero greed or anger. Their internal reality is completely unshakable. That leads us to Section 4, Dharma Protection, the secret treasury. Because naturally, you have to wonder, if this eternal, pure self is the ultimate truth, why in the world wasn't it taught openly from the very beginning? And this brilliantly illustrates the text's rationale, using the metaphor of a secret treasury. The sutra basically argues that these teachings of ultimate permanence were kept hidden in reserve. It's like a wise man stashing away 7 precious jewels. You don't just flaunt them when times are good, right? You hide them for a future crisis, a massive famine or societal collapse, and you only bring them out when they are desperately needed to save lives. So what exactly is this famine the text is warning us about? Well, it lays out some very specific prophetic warnings about the decline of the teachings. We're talking monks hoarding impure things, people faking ultimate enlightenment just for status, and scholars greedily debating rules for profit. But get this, the absolute most dangerous sign of decline, according to the text, is the widespread preaching that the Buddha just enters complete extinction, nothingness. The sutra basically says when that nihilistic delusion spreads, that is exactly when you have to crack open the secret treasury of permanence, bliss, self, and purity to course correct the whole world. Which brings us perfectly to Section 5, Conclusion. The world is not empty. This is the grand resolution to that massive paradox we introduced at the very beginning of this explainer. Check out this visual contrast. It represents the climax of the whole text. On one side, ordinary beings and corrupt practitioners are just in total despair, weeping and crying out, "Alas, the Buddha Dharma is extinguished, it's all gone into emptiness." But on the other side, we see the profound realization of Mahakāssyapa and the great bodhisattvas. They immediately stop their crying the second they realize the ultimate truth. The world is not empty, the Tathagata is eternally present. So the absolute crucial point is this final, incredibly powerful quote right from the sutra. The world is not empty, the Tathagata is eternally present, without change. This is our ultimate academic takeaway today. The Mahaparinivarna Sutra simply isn't a text about an ending. It is a text about an eternal, unshakable beginning. It strips away the whole misunderstanding of mere emptiness and replaces it with a dynamic, pure, and completely permanent ultimate reality. We have covered some incredibly dense and totally paradigm-shifting material today. We've seen how the academic definitions of permanence, bliss, self, and purity completely reframe the ultimate goal of these ancient teachings, all contrasting perfectly with the eternal nature of the Tathagata. So I want to leave you with this final thought to really consider. If the ultimate reality is not just a void of emptiness, but an eternal, unchanging, pure presence, how does that paradigm shift change your own understanding of Eastern philosophy and the very nature of reality itself? Let that question sit with you as you continue your own studies. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the nature of everything.